They called him slow. Not to his face. Well, sometimes to his face. Teachers would sigh when he raised his hand. That kind of sigh. The one that says they've already moved on, already explained it twice. And here we go again. His name was Ethan, and for most of his life he believed what everyone else seemed to know for certain. He wasn't smart, not like the others, not like anyone really. 3rd grade, Mrs. Patterson's class. There's this moment. It's small, but it sticks. She's handing back math tests, and when she gets to Ethan's desk, she doesn't just put it down. She pauses, looks at him with this expression that's trying to be kind but lands somewhere closer to pity. Maybe math just isn't your thing, Ethan, and that's okay. Everyone has different strengths. He was 7. He didn't know what his strengths were supposed to be, but he knew what this meant. He wasn't good at the things that mattered. If you've ever felt like you're watching everyone else just get it, while you're stuck trying to understand the basics, hit that subscribe button. This story goes places you won't expect. Middle school hit different. Literally. Kids are vicious when they smell weakness and academic struggle. That's blood in the water. Yo, Ethan, what's 2 plus 2? Laughter. Always laughter. He'd sit in the back of algebra class, headphones half in, pretending he wasn't there. His notebook was filled with drawings, not equations. Dragons, mostly. Incredibly detailed dragons with scales that caught light in ways that seemed almost mathematical, if anyone had bothered to look closely. But nobody did. He was the kid who failed pre-algebra. Twice. The guidance counselor suggested vocational training. Not everyone needs calculus, Ethan. Have you thought about trade school? His parents tried. God, they tried. Tutors who spoke slowly. Like volume and speed were the problem. Special programs. Extra time on tests, which just meant extra time to sit there, staring at problems that might as well have been written in a language he'd never learned. His little sister, Emma, would breeze through homework at the kitchen table while he struggled with the same stuff she'd finished 3 grades ago. She never said anything. Didn't have to. The silence said enough. High school was supposed to be a fresh start. It wasn't. Same classes, different building. He'd given up on math entirely by sophomore year, squeaking by with D's in the bare minimum required courses. But there was this one teacher, Mr. Herrera, taught senior-level physics, which Ethan had absolutely no business being near. Except Mr. Herrera also ran an after-school program. Not tutoring, just a space. Kids could work on whatever. Projects, art, random experiments. Ethan started showing up because it was quiet. Because nobody asked him questions he couldn't answer. One afternoon, Mr. Herrera is messing with this old physics demonstration, a pendulum problem, something about calculating the period based on length and gravity. Standard stuff, apparently, except the equation on the board isn't working. The actual pendulum is behaving wrong, off by a few degrees, but consistently off. Mr. Herrera's frustrated, muttering about friction coefficients and measurement errors. Ethan's in the corner, sketching. He's drawn the pendulum. Not just drawn it, mapped it. The arc, the weight distribution, the way the string bends slightly at the top of each swing. Without thinking, he says, "The string's stretching." Mr. Herrera stops. "What?" Ethan doesn't even look up. "The string. It's not rigid. When it swings, the centrifugal force stretches it just a little. So the length isn't constant. That's why your math is off." The room goes quiet. Mr. Herrera walks over. Looks at the drawing, then at Ethan, then back at the pendulum. He adjusts the setup, uses a rigid rod instead of string, runs it again. The equation works. Perfectly. "Ethan, how did you know that?" Ethan shrugs. "I don't know. I just saw it." If you're starting to see where this is going, smash that like button and subscribe because this gets wild. Turns out Ethan's brain doesn't process numbers the way most people do. Equations on a board? Meaningless. But show him the actual physical system, the real-world mechanics, and something clicks. He doesn't calculate, he visualizes. He sees the math happening in 3-dimensional space, feels how forces interact, watches energy transfer like it's a movie playing in his head. It's not slower, it's different. And for 16 years, everyone assumed different meant deficient. Mr. Herrera starts bringing him harder problems, not textbook problems, real ones, engineering puzzles, design challenges, things where the formula isn't given, where you have to figure out what's actually happening before you can solve anything. Ethan starts, not just solving them, reimagining them. There's a bridge design contest. Regional competition. College students mostly. Mr. Herrera suggests Ethan enter. Not because he thinks Ethan will win, because he wants him to try. Ethan builds his bridge out of popsicle sticks and wood glue. Standard materials. But the design, it's weird. Asymmetrical. The support structures don't follow the typical patterns. Other entries look like textbook examples. His looks almost organic, like something that grew rather than was built. The judges are skeptical. One of them literally laughs when they first see it. Did you follow any actual engineering principles here? Ethan just shrugs. I don't really know the principles. I just built it the way it needed to be. They load weight onto the bridges. Standard procedure. Most of the college designs hold solid, predictable amounts. Exactly what the calculations said they should. Ethan's bridge keeps holding. They add more weight. It flexes, but doesn't break. More weight. The support structures shift, redistribute the load in ways that don't make immediate sense. They run out of weights. Ethan's bridge is still standing. Hasn't even cracked. The judges are confused. They take photos, start analyzing the structure. One of them, a professor from MIT, is just staring at it. This shouldn't work. The load distribution is all wrong, except it's not wrong. It's just not anything I've ever seen before. Ethan wins. Not just wins. His bridge held 3 times the weight of the second-place entry. A college junior who'd spent 6 weeks doing calculations and computer modeling. Ethan had spent 4 afternoons in his garage, building by feel. MIT professor pulls him aside after. What program are you using? What software helped you model this? Ethan's confused. I didn't use software, I don't know. Imagined how the weight would move through the wood, where it would want to go. The professor's expression changes. You visualized the force vectors without calculating them? Ethan nods. I guess. I don't really know what force vectors are. I just saw where the pressure would be. Here's where it gets interesting. The professor brings Ethan to MIT for a weekend. Not recruitment, research. They want to understand how he thinks. They give him standard physics problems. He fails them, can't work through the equations, but then they give him physical models, complex mechanical systems, fluid dynamics demonstrations, thermodynamic puzzles, and he solves them, not with math, with intuition that turns out to be more accurate than the math. He's looking at a fluid flow problem, something about turbulence patterns around aircraft wings, graduate-level stuff. He suggests a wing shape modification. They model it in their simulation software. It reduces drag by 12%, better than the current aerospace industry standard. How did you know that would work? I just saw how the air would move. They run cognitive tests, MRI scans, trying to figure out what's happening in his brain. Turns out, Ethan has dyscalculia, severe. His brain literally processes numerical symbols differently, which is why traditional math was torture. But his spatial reasoning? Off the charts. His ability to visualize complex three-dimensional interactions? Beyond what they normally measure. He's not bad at math. He's been trying to do math in a language his brain doesn't speak. But give him the actual physical reality, and he understands it better than people who've spent years studying the equations. One of the researchers explains it like this. Most people learn to translate the physical world into mathematical abstractions, then manipulate those abstractions to understand reality. Ethan skips the translation. He directly perceives the mathematical relationships in physical space. It's like he's seeing the source code of physics without needing the programming language. News about the bridge competition spreads. Not huge news, but in certain circles, people notice. A robotics company in Boston reaches out. They're working on prosthetic limbs, trying to create joints that move more naturally. They've got engineers, programmers, millions in funding. But the joints still feel mechanical. They show Ethan their prototypes. He watches them move for maybe 3 minutes. Then he suggests a change to the joint angle and the spring tension ratio, something that doesn't match their calculations. They're skeptical, but humor him. Build it his way. The joint moves. Differently. More fluidly. Test subjects say it feels more natural than anything they've tried. How did you know? The tension was fighting the movement. I could see it catching. Ethan's still in high school. Still gets D's in calculus. Still sits in the back of class drawing. But now his drawings are being looked at by engineers and physicists who realize they're not just art. They're solutions. Visual mathematics that works even though it doesn't look like mathematics. Senior year. College applications. His grades are terrible, bottom quarter of his class. But his portfolio, it's full of impossible things. Bridges that shouldn't stand, mechanisms that shouldn't work, solutions to problems he couldn't explain with words or equations but could show you with his hands. MIT accepts him. Full scholarship, not to study engineering, to help redesign how they teach it. He starts classes in the fall. Freshman physics. The professor is doing a standard lecture. Projectile motion. Equations on the board. Ethan's sitting there lost like always. But then the professor shows a demonstration, an actual projectile, and Ethan sees something. "That won't land where you think," he says. Everyone turns around. Professor's annoyed. "The equation says it will land here." "Yeah, but the air resistance isn't uniform. There's a draft from the AC vent. It'll curve left." The professor's about to dismiss him. Then the projectile lands, 6 inches to the left of the prediction. The room goes dead silent. They end up collaborating. The professor starts bringing Ethan into graduate seminars, not to teach him, to learn from him. Because Ethan sees things, problems they've been stuck on for months he'll look at for 10 minutes and say something like, "The issue is there, the stress concentration." And he's right, consistently right. By sophomore year, Ethan's consulting for 3 different research labs. By junior year, he's published 2 papers. Not traditional papers. They barely contain equations, mostly diagrams, visual proofs, but they solve real problems. Mrs. Patterson, his 3rd grade teacher, sees an article about him. Local kid makes good. She reaches out, says she's proud, apologizes for not seeing his potential earlier. Ethan writes back, "I don't think you missed my potential. I think the system we were both in didn't have room for what I could do." He's right, but it makes you wonder. How many other kids are sitting in classrooms right now being told they're slow, when really they're just seeing the world differently? Ethan's 24 now, has a job offer from NASA, but he's thinking about turning it down, wants to teach instead, high school physics. I want to be Mr. Herrera for some other kid. I want to be the person who notices. Subscribe if you haven't already and drop a comment. When did you realize the way you think isn't wrong, just different? And check out the next video where we dive into another story of someone who rewrote the rules.